how do you balance kind of the encouragement of the last 25, 30 games with the big picture disappointment of being where you are right now?
Well, our goal at the start of the season was to make the playoffs. We failed in that goal. But along the way, a lot of things happen, good and bad. Nonetheless, here we are today. There are a lot of positive things. We bring up some of the younger players, and they all do very well. So, use Victor, Nikita Kucherov, or Jonathan Drouin, all had very positive seasons, all moving in a really good direction in their careers. So there's a lot of things to feel good about. We as a team, we got humbled a little bit here. I know there was a lot of injuries, but ultimately I don't think injuries are the reason we did not make the playoffs. Didn't help by any means, but we got to figure out ways to win games, and there's teams that are in the playoffs today that overcame similar situation to us this year to make it into the playoffs. So, but there are a lot of positive things here, and we're encouraged by a lot of the things. And ultimately, I think we're all better. We're all learn from it. The coaching staff, myself, all over, even our players who go through this experience again. It's somewhat of a road to trying to win a Stanley Cup, and we hit a major bump in the road, and we'll continue on towards that goal.
Wasn't injuries, what do you think it was in your mind? Players have talked about not having that first half consistency and the urgency in the beginning of the season. I don't know.
Yeah, ultimately, I break it down to this: for whatever reason, we give up too many quality scoring chances for the better part of 50 games in this season, and that's it. And that's not that goes towards our team, and that results these grade A scoring chances we're giving up. That's a result of our team play. It's not a result of an indictment on our goaltending. It's an indictment on our team play, and we got away from it. And the best teams in the league keep the puck out of the net. They keep the chances and the shots against down. So regardless of who's in the lineup, who's injured, who's healthy, you got to figure out a way to win hockey games. And usually, when you're missing some of your firepower, the best way to do that is to lock it down defensively. And we had a tough time doing that for stretches of the season, but down the stretch we were obviously very good, and we came very close, and it was a very productive run at the end of the season, and we just came up short.
Steve, one of the main priorities coming into this year was improvement on the power play, and you saw significant improvement with that. Is there an area now that you look for next year that say we've got to get better here in terms of, and maybe you talked about this, playing better defense? I know guys, maybe there were some games in there that weren't a whole lot of blocks, maybe January and February. Was that the part that you think needs to be improved on?
Well, again, just we talk about analytics and all this new data and new stats and whatnot. Ultimately, you look at it at the end of the year, the teams that are fighting at the end of the year that are standing are the best defensive hockey teams. They keep the puck out of their net. They keep the chances against down. You need great goaltending, but as a style of play, you need to keep the goals against down, keep the chances against down. We'll strive to have a good power play again next year. Our penalty killing was up and down, but was very strong down the stretch. Not coincidentally, we won a lot of hockey games. So we'll continue to get back to being a really conscientious, good defensive hockey team. Keep the puck out of our net. That'll be an improvement, and hopefully, we continue to be amongst the top teams in offensive production. But we got to get back to where our goals against is amongst at least the top 10 in the league.
Obviously, you got better time to stretch defensively and goals against in that respect. Are the answers in the current roster as it is? I know it's hard to change people as it changed the team over the course of the summer, but do you think there needs to be some subtle changes around there to make sure that the team is a better defensive team as a whole?
Well, I guess, Joe, I would say we're going to always look at ways to try and get better. What do we need to do to get better? You look, whether it be from within, kids coming up. We look at Jake Dotchin playing on the blue line, Brayden Point coming in, even Yanni Gord, all the players, Adam Ernie, all the players that came up. We'll look through free agency. We'll look through trades to try and improve our team. Specifically, I can't tell you I want to do this, or that. But again, we'll look at other ways. We need to get better. We took a step back here this year, and we'll explore every way we possibly can to try and improve the team.
How does this offseason provide a different challenge in terms of your plans to get better than last year? Obviously, you got those extensions last season to key players, but what are the key things this year?
Well, again, last year we were, we mentioned trying to keep our group together. In doing that, while we were able to do that up until the trade deadline, but Victor's contract extension kicks in this year. We did it last summer, but it kicks in, so his cap number is virtually doubling. So that money's got to come. That cap space has got to come from somewhere. We made some trades at the deadline that free up cap space. So our offseason changes a little bit. And last year was mainly maintaining the team. This year we still have some players, important players that we're looking to get locked up. But also there are, in making the trades we did at the deadline, there are roster spots open here. And whether we elect to do that through trade, through free agency, or if our young guys can continue to move in one or two young guys, it'll all be dependent on one, and then the other one is what the cap is. And then ultimately we got to deal with this expansion draft too to see what happens there. And really haven't paid a lot of attention to that to this point, but obviously that's something between now and June. I have some time, but kind of figure out what we're going to do in that regard and prepare for that. So again, we traded 3 players, and there's spots open on this roster, and we got to figure out how we fill that, and then deal with the expansion draft. And we have an idea what the cap is going to be, but we won't know for certain really until late into June. So we'll got a lot of things to do between now and then, and we'll be ready to go come the expansion draft. Will be the first, I guess, major happening for our organization.
Do you expect to be able to sign Platt, Truman, and Johnson with the cap space you currently have, or do you expect to be able to get?
I think we can sign all the players we need to sign.
See, there was so much uncertainty going into last summer, and while each summer had its own sense of it, a little bit more firm about the direction of where you're taking this team in terms of you got Sammer locked up now, you got Victor locked up, Vazzy's entrenched as number 1, where maybe going into last summer was a little less certain.
Well, there's uncertainty when you have unrestricted free agents. You're not really sure. The restricted free agents, I think we do have some control over the situation. It just comes down to do you end up in arbitration, or are you able to work out a longer term deal? We like to think we know our players reasonably well at this point. We've been together for quite a while. We have an idea of what we need as a to improve our team. It's how do we get that done? How do you find those players? And where do you find them? Is it through the draft? Is it through free agency? Is it through trade? Do we have certainty? Kind of have certainty. So I guess you can't kind of have certainty. Either you do or you don't. So
you've seen how well the young guys played. Have they exceeded your expectations? Has the timetable maybe even sped up on some of these guys that you maybe weren't sure if they were ready yet?
Well, I'm pleased with how everybody performed in a relatively short window. They all did extremely well. I'll use Jake Dotchin, for example. He was a third-year pro, and at the start of the year, our hope was, hey, let's get Jake call him up, get him into some games, because next year he needs waivers. Let's see if we can find out, is he an NHL player? And so we were hoping to get him up here. We got him up here, and he did extremely well. And we really went for all of them. Yanni, Adam Ernie, all the players that we called up, Gabriel Dumont, Michael Bourneval, they all really contributed to us winning hockey games. So, again, they're all at different stages of their career. Some of them are Group 5 unrestricted free agents. Some of them are, restricted free agents. Some of them have time. They don't need waivers, and gives us some flexibility on what we're going to do. But they're all very encouraging. And some of the guys that are free agents will, at the end of the season, at the end of Syracuse's season, decide what we're going to do and try to bring back some of the guys that contributed well for us.
Steve, you mentioned the inability to cut down on the premium scoring chances again. This is the real downfall here. The coaches mentioned that way back in November, December, January. They saw that happening. What was it that was creating that problem? Was it talent? Was it just a lack of focus with the players? Because the coaches kept harping on it.
Yeah, I can't give you a specific reason why we did not play well. And now in the second half of the season, or the last 25 games or so, things were significantly different. Do we have an off year? Did we underperform? I know our guys came into training camp in tip-top shape. We struggled, and we weren't able to get things done. It wasn't being talked about amongst the coaches and the players on a daily basis. Things just don't happen overnight necessarily. I wish they would. Honestly, I don't have a real good answer why things, and late November, early December, where we go in, even into January, we go out on a couple of road trips and play extremely well in some of these buildings, and then come back and kind of lay an egg on games we, based on the standings or these games we should win. We weren't able to do that. But we underachieved. We didn't play well. That's, I guess, the best answer. Why we didn't play well? Yeah. If we knew the answer to why we don't play well, we'd never not play well, right?
Steve, how much did Brayden Point's play really open your eyes? I mean, we all knew he had potential, but to see him come in and then in the second half of the season step up, especially when Tyler was out and fulfill that number one role?
Prior to training camp, our thought was, okay, Brayden, where do we pencil him in? We thought Brayden would, go to Syracuse, and we thought he'd be a real good player for us in Syracuse. With really no timetable on he's going to be in Syracuse for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. We felt watching him in junior that he's a real good player. We expect him to be at some point a real good NHL player. He came into training camp and performed very well. Prior to that, the rookie tournament, he was very good over in Florida. Did really good there. Came into preseason. He looked good in practice. He looked good in the preseason games. And ultimately, when our roster at the start of the season said, you know what, he's playing pretty good. He deserves to stay. And then it's, let's give it a shot, see how he does. And every time we thought about it as, you know what, he's playing pretty good. Let's just keep him here, leave him in the lineup. And he got better and better, and overcame an injury. And down the stretch, he was relied on heavily, and he did a really good job. So, he's way ahead of, I guess, the curve that we had expected for him, or the plan for him last September. So, well, hopefully, he has a strong off season and comes back and continues to. There's no guarantee that you keep going forward, and we'll really impress upon him the importance of having a really strong off season and come in and it's a tough league, and you just can't assume that it's going to go well. But he's a very mature, very responsible young man, and he's really worked at his game from the time that we've drafted him. He's done everything we've asked to get better and better, and it looks like our scouts did a great job and found a real good young player.
You guys have had 2 long postseason runs the last 2 years, and this year you won't have that. You played and you went through long playoff runs. Is there anything to having a little bit extra time this summer? Do you believe in that fatigue factor?
I'd prefer to have short summers and deal with the problem. But there's 2 things. One, the more you're on the ice, the more you play, the more intense hockey you play. The reality is you're going to get banged up. You're going to get injuries, and you look at the teams that play. The more you're out there, the more chance of getting hurt. It's as simple as that. And I think that we've played a lot of hockey over the last 2 years, plus the World Cup. Our guys are on the ice a lot. You're blocking shots. You're getting hit. Eventually, you get banged up, and just the odds are against you a little bit for that. And I do think there is, and having gone through it as a player, I do think there are times throughout the course of a year, throughout your career, depending on where you're mentally drained a little bit. And I think you could, maybe going back to your question earlier on why some of these occurred, I think mentally we weren't there at times. And as much as you want to say, yeah, it's hard to dig down and find that energy. And so, that's why it's hard to repeat. Like the teams that win Stanley Cups, it's hard for them to repeat it. There's, you look at Pittsburgh, they're doing a heck of a job of getting in the playoffs this year. Played so much hockey, they've got all these injuries. Now either getting their guys back, if they can get their guys back, have a chance to repeat. But they played a lot of hockey, they've been banged up. So for our guys, 2 really good playoff runs. We were hoping to have another one. Certainly we come into training camp. Hopefully everybody's well healed from whatever injuries they've had, and mentally you're ready to go. We can't afford to have any. We have a couple of stretches there that ultimately cost us a playoff spot.
That mental fatigue that you talked about as a player, did that tend to show up earlier in the season or later? Really,
earlier. I found it harder coming back in seasons where we lost. In '95, we got swept by the Devils in the finals. We come back for the '96 season, although we had a really, really good year that year, but it was, that you've got to go all the way through the season just to get back to, just to get into the playoffs, and then to get over that hump. It's psychologically, it's like, oh my God, we got to go through all that again just to get there, and we're trying to win. I found it easier. You win a Stanley Cup, or you have a pretty good summer. You roll into training camp. And you're kind of living off or playing off of that adrenaline that you had for last year. I think it's harder to come back when you haven't won. And this time off for our guys, I don't want to say it's a good thing, but we got to make the most of the time.
How do you feel about the coaching staff did or Cooper did with, I know you have missing your best players all season and 37 different guys in the lineup. I know you mentioned the team underachieved, so no one's happy with anything at this point. But
I think our coaching staff had to make a lot of adjustments, and things weren't working, and they had to figure out ways to make it work. And then you get all these injuries, and you got to use players in different situations. So, I think we all learn a lot from it. And for Coop and his staff, we'll be in these situations again, and whether it's October, November, whatever, injuries, slumps, and all that. Figure out ways to do things that are going to, what worked, what didn't work. So in general, I thought, again, collectively, I know we're obviously extremely disappointed we don't make the playoffs, but our players, our coaching staff, I think they did everything they could, and we figured things out along the way to give us a good chance to win. You just come up short. And again, I've talked to you a lot. I talked to the players how hard it is to make the playoffs in this league, and it's like, everybody makes the playoffs in the NHL. Well, they don't, and we got, it's 94 points. It's only 3 points different than last year. We went to Game 7 in the conference finals. Like, you just can't afford to throw away points. You got to find a way to get a point, get 2 points any way you can, and find a way not to give up a point, because you never know when it's going to come back and bite you. And unfortunately, some of the games we lost for different various reasons. At the end of it, it came back and bit us in the end.
You mentioned those games, those teams you probably should have beaten that based on the standings. You look at those games going 1-5 against the 3 bottom teams in the league as just one victory against one of those teams, and you're in.
Potentially, yeah. Again, you go back over the course of the season, if this or if that. There's some tough losses along the way for a lot of different reasons. And again, we all, on any given night in the league, if you're not sharp, if you're not ready to go, you're going to lose. It doesn't, we talk about just based on the standings, that's what I say is this is a game we need to win. We had Phoenix come in here late in the season. No disrespect whatsoever, but you're looking at the standings and you're saying, okay, we got to win this one, and we're fresh. There's no reason we shouldn't win it. We had a lead in the third period, and they're a talented young group of players. They capitalized on it. It was a tough loss for us in a game that we needed to win. But my point is, I guess, around the whole league, if you're not ready to go and you're not sharp on any given night, you're not going to beat anybody, regardless of whether you're first or in last place. And if you go back over the last month, you looked around, nobody in the league was happy. The teams that were in the bottoms of the standings, they're beating the first place teams, and they're not happy because they're where they are in the standings. And the first place teams are concerned. God, we just lost to a last place team. The league has a lot of parity, and there's a lot of hope for the teams that don't make the playoffs. And there's not much difference.
As you make your plans going forward, are you making them with the confidence that Steven Stamkos will be 100%?
Yeah. Again, the injury the procedure that he had, it just takes time. And in the long run, it's the best possible outcome that they were able to repair the cartilage in his knee. But unfortunately, it takes time for that. It's somewhere between 4 and 6 months to heal. And I think he's getting close to the 5-month mark. And, Stammer trains hard. He's a real good athlete, and he loves to play. So whether he needs a little time in the fall or whatnot, I don't know that. But a good off season, I'm confident his knee's going to be great, and he's going to come out and be the great player that he is and the dynamic player that he is. And mostly, again, he trains hard. He's a great athlete, and he loves to play. And he's overcome a couple of tough things in the past. This is the third one, and he'll overcome it. And at the end of your career, it's a tough game to play. And at the end of it, you come out of it pretty beat up.
You went through that same surgery you mentioned before. How long did it take you before you got felt?
Yeah, actually, I didn't have that procedure specifically. I've had actually the same injury, but for whatever reason, they couldn't repair it, and I had mine removed. So the good news is you come back to play sooner, but over the long run, it's not the best thing for your knee.
Steve, we know what you miss with Steven on the ice, but when you miss his absence in the room, the leadership that he brings for the period of time, is there a way to kind of quantify what that means to a team?
Stammer's in the prime of his career. He's one of the top goal scorers. He's a dynamic player, and in our, I'm not in the locker room with the players, but speaking from my own experiences, as you go through a season, it's nice to be able to look down the bench or look across the locker room and knowing, hey, that guy's he's gonna make a difference here. And we didn't have him out there that for him. He wasn't able to make that difference on the ice and be in the room every day. And it's difficult. He's the captain of the team, the leader of the team. It's difficult if you're not on the ice every day and in that room every day to really have the full impact of your experience and of your leadership. So we missed him a lot. But having said that, we have a good core of guys in there, and for the most part, a really experienced group that you have to overcome it. And but yeah, no question, he obviously missed on the ice, but his attitude, his personality is missed out for that extended period of time. We've been able to overcome it in the past, but we needed him more than ever this year. But you got to figure out a way to get in, and we figure out a way to get in, and he's coming back, likely coming back.
Sorry, can you talk about the last couple of days for you? I mean, the emotions of winning a couple games north of the border, and then the Penguins losing to the Maple Leafs, and then yesterday with the closing of the Joe. Can you just talk about your emotions the last couple of days?
Well, we're following in our team. We know the situation we're in, and we know the odds of trying to get in were behind us, or against us. But everybody worked extremely hard every day. It was playoff mode for really the last month, and the guys responded. The team responded really well. I think I know the coaches did a good job in preparing the team and ready to play. So it was great experience for us all. You're sitting there hoping that the Penguins can to win that one. Toronto's a pretty talented young team. We just played them. We were able to beat them. But you're watching them, and they're well coached. They're well organized. And it's like, you know what? We need some luck here, because that's a talented group of guys. They're going to figure out a way to win a game. And also the Islanders are right there as well, And so Saturday night is very disappointing, once we hear the result of the game. And, last night and going into Detroit, obviously, I was, hoping that our game meant something yesterday. I was happy to be a part of this, the closing of Joe Louis Arena. Obviously, I played my entire career in that building, and to be there to witness it and see a lot of people, former teammates, former employees in the building, and people sitting in the stands. It was a really good night, and I was. Obviously it's bittersweet for me, but I was happy to be there, and I'm glad I got to witness the closing of the building.